kicking and punching people in the groin and body while wearing canvas pajamas? I mean, I'm not going to say it's a good time, right? I mean the Invisible Sensei podcast playing loud in the background as I am literally attacked by ninjas. I don't think you heard literally attacked by ninjas.
Hey, kia ora, everybody. Welcome to the Invisible Sensei podcast. If you're listening to this, you should be watching it also on YouTube, on a YouTube channel. If you go to the link in the description, you'll see how to get on our link tree and go and watch it. And if you're watching it, you should also be listening to it. It's split into some digestible parts, and it's going to be a really interesting listen too, especially if you're on a bus, train, you've got a little bit of time. It's always I try to make it digestible. Anyway, guys, today our guest is my brother from another mother, Sensei James Pankiewicz of the Sato Dojo in Okinawa. James, how are you, man?
I'm very well. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Kia ora.
Good morning. Kia ora. Now, I should start by saying James got up early on a Sunday to get all the way to the dojo after I've very kindly agreed to go down to the dojo. This is probably your 1 week, 1 day of the week off from early morning training, I imagine.
Days off? I don't quite follow.
Yes, Iron Fist Pankiewicz.
My pleasure to be here. It's been too long since we've been online together.
Yeah. There's some really exciting stuff coming up later in the year. And after much pleading and begging and gnashing of teeth, you're coming down to this end of the world, which I'm really excited about. You're going to be coming down, bringing the James factor to both Australia and New Zealand. Really excited about it. Tell us a little bit about what the itinerary is and what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you're excited. I'm 10 times excited. This is going to be awesome. It's not the first time I've been to Australia and New Zealand, but it's been many, many years, and it's well overdue. I am super excited. And also, I'm bringing one of my senior students with me, Tamashiro-san from the dojo. So it's quite an itinerary. We are flying into Australia, landing in Brisbane around the 19th of September, and then have a series of dates down through Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne. I'm looking forward to visiting lots of people and getting lots of great training as we progress down through the East Coast there. And then October 1st, land in New Zealand, landing in Auckland, and a couple of days in Auckland, a few days in Auckland, which I'm looking forward to hugely, and then down to Wellington, where October the 5th and 6th we have the Kizuna event, which you and I have been working on for quite a while, to be honest, since your visit here last year, where we had an awesome, 1 month of training, sharing. I mean, I learned so much about the arts that you brought, and we had some awesome sessions here, training outdoors, training in the dojo here. Great group of people, and I'm really looking forward to kind of continuing that and extending that experience back there in Wellington with you guys.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to having you here too, man. And I'm looking forward to you getting sort of a deeper understanding of sort of how beautiful New Zealand is. So it's really great to know that you're going to be here, you're going to be hanging out, but also more importantly, getting to know a little bit more about the country and being able to take time to actually experience it. Now, we've talked a little bit about Kizuna. So you and I in conversation, you came up with this wonderful concept, which is, I guess, the theme or the rationale behind the seminar. Can you talk a little bit about Kizuna as a concept and why that kind of applies to your, what we call the hardest working man in rock and roll tour, James Pankiewicz Down Under?
Well, we chose Kizuna as a theme specifically for the Wellington event because Kizuna in Okinawan, it's Okinawan and not Japanese, means it's kind of about the ties that bind us together as friends, as family, as a community. And, the things that tie us together are our mutual love for the practice of Okinawan traditional martial arts. But if you're involved, if you're training karate, you know that even if you come into karate just with the objective of becoming better at, defending yourself, becoming a better martial artist, you realize that the process of learning karate and indeed living and practicing karate is not a solo effort. You're connected to people. You need to train with people. You need to learn to work with people. And in fact, let's be honest, the more capable you become, the more people come to rely on you to teach, to assist, to help. So I think that all of that is tied up in this concept of Kizuna. Karate doesn't exist in a vacuum. In fact, that's the main difference between, I think, between going into a karate dojo and just going into, say, a gym. Yeah, you go into a gym, you do a physical workout, you leave. Thank you very much. Maybe there's not much connection there, but a dojo is different. In a dojo, it's as much about fostering the human spirit and the human character as it is the physical skills. Those two things happen together. So, yeah, I like Kizuna as a theme for the process of learning together, testing each other, sharpening each other's metal, so to speak. That's part of the martial arts learning process, right? Is we help each other to become that much better without having to necessarily, one person win, the other person lose. Yeah, we're all going to win together and progress together. So all of that is in the spirit of Kizuna, and I'm looking forward to getting some really good training in. I like to do a good physical workout. I'm very focused on the practical applications of the karate and the weapons arts, the kobudo, that we inherit from this Okinawan legacy. Looking forward to training with you again, training with your students, training with all of the participants that come and get involved in the Kizuna event.
Yeah, one thing that kind of stood out for me in your training in November when I was in Okinawa was that the way in which I guess, plethora of different martial artists and different practitioners of even completely different buha that turned up at the Asato and kind of trained together. And a memorable kind of session that we had was actually then at Namanui Shrine. And it was great to sort of see different people training together, doing Kakie training. And of course, we had some seminar stuff. I also really enjoyed training with Ulf Sensei. I mean, that was incredible. It's actually really inspired me to meet practitioners of senior rank and senior in terms of their experience, who are so open-minded and so approachable. And so what themes can we kind of expect in the Kizuna? What are you playing with at the moment, and what are you going to bring to our seminar space?
Our primary area of focus within our studies in the dojo is tomarite and shurite. So what I tend to teach tends to be derived principally from the tomarite tradition or tomarite kata and practices, and the shurite tradition and practices. And that in itself is quite a wide area, and with an enormous amount of fantastic material to work with. But we tend to be working a lot of material from kata like wanshu, wankan, rohai, pasai, and on the other side, nai hanshi, goju shiho, tataniara kushanku. In terms of what our style is, it's very close in. Yeah, so we work often at grappling range. So yeah, it's a striking art, and boxing skills are our sort of our base level skill set. But a lot of our technique leads quickly into grappling, into clinching, and therefore into that whole range of techniques that you get from that, which is grabbing the limb, seizing techniques, seizing, reversing against being seized, arm locks, throwing techniques and takedowns and that sort of thing. So we have, I feel, a really rich tradition that we inherit in our kata. And I look at kata like usually I use the metaphor of like a recipe book, right? So in order to get good at the cooking, you have to actually cook and get hands on and practice it. but we get some fantastic guidance from what's been passed down to us in the form of kata. Much like when you discover something amazing from a recipe or a cookbook, and you can apply that to your cooking. Yeah, principal focus is going to be around that Tomarite tradition, that Shurite tradition, and just trying to pass on some of the learning that I have benefited from over the 15 years I've been here in Okinawa, training with Okinawan teachers, but also, as you mentioned, other great teacher practitioners who come into Okinawa from around the world. And we're lucky enough that many of them come to a Sato Dojo and share their knowledge and their skills with us.
Yeah, it's funny, we were talking about sort of the way in which things are shared there. So I guess the question is, if I'm not a Shorin-ryu practitioner or Shotokan practitioner or a so-called Shurite practitioner, is there room for me at the Kizuna seminar? Do I specifically need to have knowledge of that style? What style preferably should I be, if any?
Well, I think this is really a really interesting point, is that I used to think about styles as being sort of almost like you think about almost like separate colleges or schools. There's a style over there, there's a style over there, and there's a style over there, and they've got their own thing. They do their own thing. So if you learn over there and then you go and learn over there, you're going to find that is very, very different from what you learned over there. But the reality is that the overlap is much greater than the difference. So it's all based on, the basic challenge of human combat, human self-defense. What I find is that actually, whether we're doing forms and patterns that originate from, the Goju tradition or from, the Shorin-ryu tradition or other traditions, actually, we're all working the same thing. So it's actually, for me, being able to move over slightly into sort of the path of another line of teaching tends to open your eyes. It tends to give you just a fresh perspective on many things that you already knew already. But there are endlessly creative ways of applying learning to the same challenge. And for me, the Ryuha these days for me I don't view them as sort of divisions, as walls. I just see them as different approaches to learning the same thing. So I offer that as kind of an invitation and a little bit of a challenge to everybody to come maybe just slightly out of the way that you do things, but that tends to be where you find your growth. Certainly for me, going and visiting other dojos, learning from other teachers is always challenging, but always very, very rewarding. So that's what I recommend to everybody. When people come here to the Sato Dojo, I very, very much view this dojo as a gateway to all of the learning possibilities in Okinawa. Rather than, say, come here and learn this, to try to facilitate adventures, journeys of discovery and learning. And I find that to be really the best way to continue that path of progress. Otherwise, I think you can also get very, very stuck in doing the same thing exactly the same way, perhaps without really, making or having the stimulation, the ongoing stimulation. So I extend the invitation to people to come and train with us, see how you like it, take away what you want.
One of the things that we talked about and I'm looking forward to is after the first day, we're going to have a little bit of a social event. It's going to be the Dojo Bar International Barbecue. So there will be, there'll be much conversation. So it's not just about, I guess, doing the training, but, people are going to have an opportunity to sort of sit down and have a conversation. I think it's really cool if you haven't been to Okinawa, or perhaps if you have, just to sit down with James and have a conversation about his experiences. I certainly enjoyed it. I certainly always enjoy our wide-ranging conversations. In terms of subject matter, you're also going to be doing Bojutsu as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bojutsu, Saijutsu, and Karate go hand in hand in our tradition in our school here. And I find that Bojutsu is a really important key to unlocking another level of understanding of our combative traditions, combative strategies and skills. Yeah, where people are interested, then I'm very happy that we extend our practice into Bojutsu too. Actually, one of the reasons that I'm very happy to be bringing my senior student with me, who is Tamashiro Toshihiko, is that he is also an excellent Bojutsu practitioner in the Yamani-ryu tradition. And our Bojutsu, if Yamani-ryu means anything to people watching and listening to this, our tradition is largely derived from that school of Bojutsu, a style of Bojutsu that originated in Shuri in Okinawa. And it's a very fast, flowing, dynamic way of using the bow, essentially the 6-foot staff, right? I love that practice. I think that the bow should be. They talk about the weapon. Any weapon should be an extension of your body, right? Well, that of course makes sense, but it's actually quite challenging to extend the dynamic, sort of flexible, agile way that you can use your body into a weapon. But Yamani-ryu for me is one of the styles that really embodies that ideal in the way that it's used, and so we pursue that ideal. I'm be very, very happy to have the opportunity to practice that with other people that are interested in weapons practice, whether they have a lot of experience or just want to start to give it a try. Then I'm very, very happy that we work together to do that. For me, Kobudo is it's almost like the Hoju Undo for karate. So while you're training weapons and you want to learn, how to use a weapon, you also in training Hojo, in training Kobudo, it's a form of supplementary training, Hoju Undo, that's the meaning of that, for your karate. So how to take your base skills a level up, because it's challenging. Working with a weapon is another level of challenge, and so yeah, I strongly recommend that. Almost all the teachers that I know in Okinawa train both empty-handed and weapon skills. They may not, advertise that they teach or weapons, for example, but almost all of them practice those two together, and it's a really, really beneficial combination to do so.
Also, just quickly on Tamashiro-san, it was a real pleasure to train with him and to see his karate and his kobudo whilst I was lucky enough to be at the Asato Dojo last year. Fantastic practitioner. Got to be one of the fittest dudes I've ever seen. I mean, he is just an absolute machine. I mean, I found Okinawa hot. Probably for you and for him, it was kind of a temperate kind of time. But he was training the whole time. We were doing some pretty rough sessions, and he was training with what do you call those things? With
like a rash guard on.
Yeah, he had a rash guard on. So he had a rash guard pants, had a full rash guard on the whole time we were training. I don't know how he did it, and his karate is really beautiful, as is kobudo. So I think everyone's in for a real treat seeing you guys on the floor together.
Yeah, I was going to say that he embodies for me the next generation of Okinawa practitioners who are coming through. He's incredibly good shape and absolutely loves his practice and represents a level of skill which is really, really excellent. So incredible asset to our dojo, and one of those very active practitioners becoming instructors and teachers who are so important for the future of Okinawa as a place to come, a mecca for martial arts. Yeah, I'm very, very glad that we also get the opportunity with these kind of visits to extend that opportunity to the practitioners from Okinawa that are coming through now as the older masters, start to hand over the baton, so to speak, to the next generation. Yeah. So when I think about Bojutsu then, and that practice with a weapon, a lot of what we're going to work on is actually working on sort of moving naturally and using the weapon in a natural fashion. Whenever you pick up a weapon, you tend to start working almost against it. Yeah, it's difficult to move, and it feels like you're fighting against the weapon, right? But what we want to do is actually get used to the weapon almost being an extension of ourselves and connected to our center. So a lot of the exercises that we'll do with our Bojutsu is to get very comfortable with the weapon, yeah? Very comfortable with the whole length of the weapon, for example. The inherent advantage of the bow is its length, yeah? Yeah, long weapon versus a short weapon. And so a lot of the practice that we'll do will be about having that dexterity, having that ability to use the weapon, use the whole length of the weapon, right? So, yeah, use the whole length of the weapon and get very comfortable with that. Once you're comfortable with the weapon, then techniques become much more doable, much more enjoyable in a way, right? We don't tend to work very, very long, complicated forms or kata. What I try and do with the forms that we have, and we only have 3 core ball kata for example, in the Matsubashiru system, is really explore those and get as much out of them as we can. So we don't tend to zoom through and try and learn many, many forms, but understand the fundamental principles and movements that are in that bow form. So when we're using the bow, how do we get this flowing movement happening? Yeah. When we do our form, for example, we want to work from having basic stances to having more dynamic stances, for example. Really using the bow as an extension in the same way we would when we're using our karate. We would work in a soft way and use taisabaki and tenshin to work around the incoming attack. Using the same thing with our Bojutsu, yeah, working around the lines of attack. Yeah. So those are the primary skills. I tend to build a lot of what we go through around our core kata, which is short but has a lot of detail on it, which is Shiramatsu no Pon. That kata has some really nice sequences in it. We will look at some of those. We'll look at some of those sequences within our training. But I also want to say that I'm really looking forward to exploring the overlap with the Maori martial arts and Rakao that you exposed us to and took us through when you were here last year. So for me, that's also going to be, I think, a really interesting aspect of what we do is looking at the overlap there as well.
Yeah, it's got, one thing which was really cool when we did that was kind of looking at the different sort of traditions, but I guess there are commonalities, and just with, there's only so many ways you can kind of wield a weapon at range. So, but I guess what was also cool was just looking at some of the different rationales culturally as well was really cool. Now, one thing that you're really big on that I've really enjoyed was the way in which you use Kakie as a prelude to partner training, to kind of adaptation, creating on the spot, and as a way of, I don't want to say safe, no martial art is ever safe, but a way of developing technique. Can we look forward to bringing your Kakie flavor down to Aotearoa?
Absolutely. For me, these sort of pushing hand exercises have become a core part of the way we train in this dojo. We were just here last night, actually. We were doing one of our sparring sessions, which we do at the weekends. You know, Kakie pushing hands for me is a really great way to get into essentially sparring, doing kumite. Yeah. So, you know, if you throw people straight into kumite, I mean, if they're a fighter, an inherently, you know, fighter, then they'll go into it and they might do great. But most people are not. In fact, most people that are learning martial arts are doing so because they're probably not inherently the kind of person that goes out and gets into a fight. So pushing hands for me is a great way to bring people into the contact side of our training. We work it at all kinds of levels up to essentially like a free sparring level. But what it does is it brings people into effective range. So it's well and good, and we need the skill set and range to work kind of in a kickboxing style of kumite. But the Kakie brings us into effectively sort of clinching, close to grappling range, puts us in that position where we have to learn to deal with the other person's weight, momentum, and their attack and their strategy. So pushing hands is a great exercise. We work it first at a level to try to improve our own stability, our own ability to control our center, our breathing, keep a good structure, learn a good guard. Yeah, some of the real fundamentals. And then, yeah, we build on that. So, you know, we make it a little bit more of a more free practice in certain aspects. We might say, okay, well, from a Kakie position, we're now going to practice techniques A, then B, then C, and maybe then into combinations, you know, A, B, and C. And recently, what I've been doing is drawing those combinations specifically from our kata. So, you know, going, okay, we're actually going to select a sequence of movements from kata A, B, or C, and we're going to work those within that Kakie framework. And that's really, really interesting. You know, that kind of exercise is sometimes called kata sparring, and I'm not the first person to come up with that. But it is, without doubt, very, very productive. It's kind of an experimental process in the way in that you know, you're not always guaranteed that sequence of moves that you selected to work from the kata is going to work the best or necessarily be one that you're entirely comfortable with. But that also is part of the learning process. Kakie gives us the framework to be able to work that progressively in a learning environment. So this is also the most important thing about Kakie, is that if you are thrown straight into a kumite environment, something close to a free kumite environment, then you are going to be in fear mode, right? You are going to be in a very, very defensive mode. That's not a great mode for learning. Not a lot is going to go in. So if we can get into more of a relaxed mode, more of a fun mode, where we are essentially playing with the other person, working with the other person, then the learning tends to be much, much better. And so that also for me is where Kakie is a really, really fantastic bridge between solo practice of techniques or combinations in kata and actual, you know, kumite training.